Buddy, thanks for coming. Excellent. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining. So my name is Kurt Holton. I'm with Rise Now, the engagement, the implementation partner that worked with California State on implementation of Jagger. We worked on the what was phase one, putting in the buying marketplace. Now we're working on sourcing contracts and spend analytics. So this is part of phase two. So purpose today is going to be training in the contracts module. There'll be sourcing training coming up in a couple weeks. So be on the lookout for that. I think we have the first one of those that are actually already been calendared. Structure, how we'll run the training today is I have a couple slides to give some overview and some quick background. I'm going to blast through that pretty quick so we can get right into the system and into creation of a contract, authoring a contract, routing for approvals, reporting, etc. Then the second half of the hour we'll try to hopefully solicit someone from the audience. We can walk through an example from California State. So that's been proven helpful over the last couple of weeks as we've been going through various testing and training activities. So without any further ado, so again, just a quick agenda. We'll walk through a real high level overview and timeline, benefits. We'll do the contracts walkthrough. Then we'll talk about some key changes and impacts. And then some of the key slides will be a takeaway as well, tools and support and what to expect for next steps. So project overview. Hopefully this is a repetition for most everyone on the call, but just to give you a quick update, like I said, our phase one was implemented this summer, and that was all but 6 campuses are using the Jagger marketplace for P-card purchasing through the punch-out catalogs through that site. Phase two we just recently kicked off, and now we are getting ready to go live with contracts and sourcing. And spend analytics tool will be spun up around mid-November, and that'll be for executive reporting and things, and that'll build out over time as we get more transactions into Jagger. And then finally, if it's approved, it's being presented to Cabo in January, but the phase three will be basically a full P2P functionality with requisitions, purchase orders, invoicing, and supplier management. So that's something to look forward to in the future, and again, all on one unified platform. What are the benefits we'll see for contracts? One of the keys that one of the key benefits that we're hoping to provide, and one of the key points of feedback we had early on was increased search. So we really focused on what are the needs for the campuses for visibility for a couple things. For visibility of contracts, so we're going to provide visibility to all campuses so people can see what other contracts are out there for various suppliers across the system. Hopefully able to then leverage better agreements. Also, much easier ability to search for multi-campus and system-wide contracts. So we'll have some very very clean designation of if a contract is in fact just for a single campus, or if it's a system-wide contract, it can be utilized across the board. Automation. There's a couple you'll see during the training. There's a couple different ways that Jagger uses the word template, but we'll have over time we'll be building out a library of predefined legal documents. And that's what they want to ask when we get out of this, is you get back to your campus, start using the system. We'll be looking to solicit existing standard agreements that we can then incorporate to the system so that they're available for everybody. The other thing the system will provide is automation of redlining, ability to compare. We'll get into that. And we're also utilizing in most campuses Adobe Sign for electronic signature. Now, some campuses may use DocuSign, so we are also going to be enabling the use of DocuSign if campuses want to go that direction. New interface and features. Again, just some quick ones here. It's one environment to collect everything. We'll have what we call your contract header information, very, again, searchable contract summary screens. Also the ability to copy existing contracts, and again, I think that one of the keys is searchability. What is done, what's still being developed. So our approach with contracts and sourcing was to get kind of with a thought for speed to value, get the core functionality out there and deployed, and then build on over time and deploy, additional templates and documents and workflows as are identified or for specific areas. So right now we're going live with the creation of basic contracts. We've got a list of contract types that Chris will go through in the training, and e-signature is live. What's being developed, we have templates. We have several working groups in flight right now. We're working on templates for goods and services. We also have some working groups looking at public works, leasing, auxiliaries, and student agreements. And that really entails really focusing in on what additional data points or metadata we would need to collect for each of those areas. Over time, the contract types and templates will be developed, and that's just the overall running through the course of business. One more point, auto numbering of contracts. So I know in the current systems you guys use, contract naming is wide open. So you'll see in the demo, there is still a free form contract name that we'll be providing some guidelines for how to name it, but the actual final contract numbers are all auto-generated by the system and smart numbered. So again, another enhanced method of searching, etc. And with that, we will jump into contracts. And I'll hand over the screen to Chris Jones. So Chris Jones is on my team at Rise Now. He's been the design and deployment and configuration lead. So he will now take us through.
Sounds good. Thank you, Kurt. Appreciate that. So just need to go ahead and share my screen. There we go. All right. So let's take you into the application and take a look at the contract creation and authoring process. So everyone can see my screen, right? Just verifying. Yep. So I've logged into the application as a contract administrator, and you'll notice that I'm taken directly to this contracts dashboard. So just note the name of this dashboard may change in the future, but you're able to see things like the contract summary status of different contracts. So you can view contracts by contract manager or by status or type. You can see some of the options here. You can filter this down based on whether it will be active for shopping, which will be more important later on. You'll notice on the right-hand side, we've got a widget that will allow us to search for contracts by contracting party or name or number. We can also get into advanced searches. We got quick links here, so we can quickly create a brand new contract by clicking on this link if we want to. Just note that you can always go into contracts in this left-hand menu, and you can go into contracts here and create a new contract from the left-hand menu as well. But we've given you a nice link here on the right-hand side of the page to do that. Below that, you'll notice we've also got a supplier request form as well. So if you know that you need to request that a new supplier be created in the system, you can always get to it from this dashboard. So you'll click on this CSU supplier request form, and then you will go through the system, or go through the form rather, fill out some basic information about the supplier that you need, and then you'll submit your form request, and that'll route it to the appropriate individuals at CSU, and they'll eventually create that supplier record for you. So you can use them in the creation of your contracts and potentially sourcing events as well. Below that, you're going to see, switch back over to my contracts dashboard here, you'll see contract alerts as well. So this will alert you about upcoming contracts that will expire or contracts that have recently expired. So keep you to date. on those types of contracts. So quick note here, you've seen it a little bit earlier, but you're able to flip back and forth between different dashboards in the tool. So if you happen to be somebody who authors contracts in this application, but also you create sourcing events and maybe even you shop for products or services, you can view your dashboards by clicking on this View Another Dashboard button. Or drop down, and you can select the appropriate dashboard to find the dashboard that you need. So just FYI, you have the ability to switch between dashboards as necessary. Before we get into actually creating a contract, what I'd like to do is show you how to generate a key that will allow you to connect your user account with the Jagger Word app. So to do that, you're going to get into your user profile, and you can do that by clicking on the little user icon in the top right-hand side here, and then you're going to click on View My Profile. Okay, so this is going to take you into your user profile, and from here you can click on App Activation Codes, and what you're going to do is you're going to click on Add Microsoft Word. So this will allow you to add an app activation code for each device that you use to author contracts. So if you have one laptop and you use that laptop in the office and at home for contract authoring purposes, then you're only going to have to do this once for that one laptop. Now, if you have a laptop that you use at home and a desktop that you use in the office and maybe an iPod or iPad or something like that, or some kind of mobile device that you want to also use, you may have to add a unique code for each one of these devices, just FYI. But in my case, I'm going to go ahead and just add one code. And since I'm doing this for myself, I'm not having Claire or David do this for me. I don't need to email this to myself. I'm going to see that code appear right in the application. So we'll go ahead and add our device. And what we're going to do is just copy this code. So it's easy to just copy it. And this code you'll see will be available to use for 72 hours. I only need to do this once. So I'll go ahead and open up Word. So I'll pull over Word here so you can see it. And I'll open a blank document. And the first time that you do this, you'll need to go into Insert. And then you're going to want to Get Add-ins. Okay, so then what you're going to do is you're going to search for Jagger. That's Jaggaer, and click the little search icon. So you should see these icons appear. And if you're working in the test environment, you're going to want to select this option here, Jagger Contract Authoring Test Environment. So you'd click the little Add button. If you're authoring a contract in production, what you'll want to do is select this Add button here for Jagger Contract Authoring. You're never going to want to use the European Union versions of these add-ons. After you add that, you'll notice that if you go back to your home page, in your ribbon, there should be an option for you to click on the little Jagger app add-on. So we can go ahead and click on that. And what we're going to do is we're going to paste in our app activation code, and we're going to activate. Now, when you set up your app activation code, the system's going to ask you to type in a password when you did that in your user profile. So here you'll also need to go ahead and put in that password. And then sign in. And now you have successfully made the connection between your user profile and the Jagger Word app. So you're only going to have to do this one time for your device in the test environment, right? So if you're only using one device, you'll do this once for the test environment, and then later on, if you do it in production, you do it for the production environment. So that's how you make that connection between the Jagger Word app and your user profile. So I'm going to close this for now. And now I can go ahead and start authoring my contract. So what I can do is I can go into my contracts dashboard, and I can either click this Create New Contract link here, or like I said, I can go in the left-hand menu under Contracts, and then Create New Contract. Either way does the exact same thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and type in the name of my contract. So
And again, that name there can be anything. And Dave and Claire, I believe, will be publishing out a. Again, we do have some guidelines for how we want to use those, but again, that's free form, and it is searchable later on though. So if you have, the more consistent we are across the organization, the more worthwhile that is.
yep. So yeah, just keep in mind you may want to make this contract name specific enough to where you could pick it out from a list of contract names. So we don't want 100 contracts in there that are just named master enabling agreement or statement of work or something like that. We want a name in there that's specific enough to where you could kind of pick it out from a list, right? Okay, so next, what we're going to do is we're going to select a contract type for our contract. So if we happen to know the name of the contract type, what we can do is just click into the box and start typing it, right? So I can just start typing goods, and then I can select it. So that's an easy way. If you're doing these contracts all the time, you can quickly and efficiently type in the name and select it from the list box. If I don't know the names of my contract types, what you could do is you can click on the little magnifying glass here, and this is going to give you a listing of all the contract types available. And then you can select it from this list and click Save Changes. So either way, it'll work. But if you just happen to know the name of the contract, you can save yourself contract type. You can save yourself some clicks by just clicking into the box and starting to type the contract name. So either way will work, but as you get more adept at using this tool, you'll be able to just click into this box and start typing in the contract type.
And again, the contract types, again, we're starting with a core group, and that's one area over time as we identify and firm out more types of contracts utilized by the system. Those will be added in there, so that's an ongoing effort.
Yep.
The next field Chris is going to talk about is it's a key Jagger construct, but it'll have to be more. It'll tie into your organization by campus. So of course you can get into work group.
Yeah, and one of the nice things here is for the majority of you, your work group is going to be predefined. So when you start creating your contract, if you work at Sonoma, essentially Sonoma is going to be pre-populated in here for you. If you work at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, that's going to be pre-populated for you for some of you, or you may just have a listing of two, right? So should be fairly simple to select if you know the name. Obviously, you know the name of your campus, so you're probably just going to end up clicking in here if it doesn't pre-populate for you, and you'll start typing it in, and you'll select it. So this is a way for us to kind of differentiate access to contracts, right? So the idea is we want to give people the ability to see each other's contracts, but not necessarily edit each other's contracts or create contracts in other people's campuses. So we use this work group structure to divide up access to the system as to where you can create your contracts. So that's essentially what this work group structure is used for. Now, if the work group doesn't pre-populate for you, like I said, you can start typing in that work group name here and select it from the list box. If you do have an open listing, maybe you work at the chancellor's office, you can click on this little magnifying glass, and then you can click on this little arrow, and then you can select the appropriate work group for your contract. So it depends on your access level, but like I said, for the majority of you, you may not have to select anything at all here. It may just be pre-populated for you with your university. So next, we have what is called a main document template. So the main document templates are really going to come a little bit later in the process. So right now we're working to kind of gather main document templates from the team. So we don't have a lot of great main document templates already built into the tool. It's something that we're still working on and will continue to work on. So for right now, the majority of you will continue to just create a contract and you'll upload a document later on in the process. But I'll also show you how you can select a main document template and how that main document template can pre-populate with information from the header. So there's a lot of great functionality that comes with having your main document templates built into the tool. And we'll certainly show you that later on in the demonstration, but I wanted to show you how you can upload a main document template instead of using one of the templates, because I understand that that's probably going to be the more that's probably what you're going to be doing more often than not right after we go live with this module.
And in Jagger terms, the main document template is really nothing more than the legal the actual legal agreement. So it's the Word document with that is the contract, right? So that's your just nothing more than that. And then when it's in a Jagger template, it enables us to pull in some other over time. It enables to pull in some other automated insertions of clauses and alternative language, etc.
Right, so once we have designated all this information, we can go ahead and click Create Contract, and that's going to start the drafting process for our contract. So as you can see, the system is automatically going to provide us with a contract number. So you can see that that number is listed here. The contract name that we provided is listed in this header page. Contract type, the work group, those are all put into the system here for us. While we're authoring this contract, we can also designate a parent contract. So if I know that this is, kind of related to another contract, but is underneath another one, maybe it's a, kind of a statement of work type of document in relation to a master services agreement. What you can do here is you can click into this box and you can start typing in the contract number. So I could type in C-CPP and then dash and then 000, and I can start typing in that number, right? Another thing that you can do if you don't know the contract number for the parent is you can go ahead and click on this little magnifying glass and you can search here as well. So if you need to search here, you can type in maybe information about the contract for the search, go ahead and search for it, and then you would select the parent contract, and then that would select it in the system. So you have the ability to do that as necessary. Next, you're going to designate whether you want to use electronic signature for this contract. So this is a yes or a no. So we're going to go ahead and say, yes, we do want to utilize electronic signature for this contract. And then I'll show you a little bit later how you can say no to this and what that will mean in the system. And then you can designate whether you want this contract to show up in the supplier portal, yes or no. Please note that if you say yes here, you can determine which of the contract documents actually show up in the supplier portal. Okay. Next, you're going to give a value for the contract. So how much money is being kind of committed in this contract. So we'll say for this contract, it's going to be $200,000. Okay. And then next you can provide a summary. The summary is optional. You don't have to provide it, but it is an option that you can include. Okay. And then click done when you're ready. So next you're going to select a second party to the contract. So we're going to click add party and then select our second party. And then if we know the name of the second party, we can start typing it in. Or you can click just the search icon to search for all the second parties. So if I was looking for let's just say ADC partners. I can start typing in ADC partners rather, and click search, and that's only going to find the second parties that have this in their name, right? So I could even, if I didn't know it was ADC partners, I could just type in ADC and search, and that's going to pull up every second party that has ADC in it. So it's a pretty smart fuzzy search that'll allow you to find the appropriate second parties. So I'll go ahead and select this second party. And for now, you don't need to select a contact or an address. So we can go ahead and click next through those. Below that, you're going to see your date and renewal options. So you'll notice that time zone has been defaulted in for us at Pacific Standard Time. If I need to change that, I can, but it'll default in for me. After that, you're going to see the start date and the end date of the contract. So the start date is obviously when the contract is going to go into effect. So I can do a couple things here. I can go ahead and just start typing it in. So I can say, let's see, 09, 29, 2020. Or what's easier to do sometimes is just use this date picker. So you can click on this little calendar icon. And then if it's in the month that you're currently in, you can just select it here. Or if it's in a different month, you can use these little left and right icons. But if it's going to be further out in the future, maybe for the start or end date, what you can do is you can click on this little month and year icon here, and this will bring you out to a larger list of months. So I could say, okay, it's in November 11th is when we're going to start this contract. Or you can even go out to, years, right? So I can say, really, this contract's not going to start until 2023 in May 24th, right? So you have the option to go ahead and select the appropriate date and time. But I'll go ahead and set this back to 2020, and we'll do maybe September 29th. You can also select a time for the contract. So not every client uses time. So some of them just default it to 12 a.m. as the starting time. But if you do want a specific time for when this contract starts, you can click on this little watch icon or clock icon, and then you can scroll down and you can select the time. So you can say, okay, this contract is going to start exactly at, let's just say, 11 a.m. at on 9/29, right? You can also check this box to have the start date update upon the execution. So if you want the start date to be exactly at the date and time when the last signature is collected in the electronic signature, or when you designate that when you upload the contract, you can check this box and it will automatically do that for you. Or if you just want a hard-coded start date, then you can do that. And if you want to, kind of ignore the execution time, and really it's going to the effective date of the contract is going to be, outside of that execution date, then you can leave it as is and not check this box. So those are a couple of your options there. Next, you're going to designate an end date for the contract. So, obviously, if it's an evergreen contract or a contract that should not expire, which should be fairly rare, then you can click no expiration date when necessary, and you won't need to provide an end date. But if there is an expiration date, you'll want to leave this on expires on, and then you'll go ahead and select an end date for the contract as well, right? So again, you can click in here and start typing it in, but a lot of times it's easier to just go ahead and click on this little calendar icon. And again, you can click on these buttons to zoom out of the dates, select the year, select the month, and then select the day. Okay, so that's how you can designate the start date and the end date of the contract. Next, let's talk about the review dates of the contract. So review dates are not required, so you can leave all of this blank if you want to. Essentially, the purpose of the review dates is just to remind you to review the contract. So it's very generic. It doesn't doesn't necessarily tell you what you're reviewing. It just is a way to remind yourself to review the contract at a certain date. So what you can do if you want to just be reminded to review the contract on a certain date one time is you can select that date, and now the system will send you an email notification telling you to review this contract on this date. But if you want to, what you can do is select a review date to start, and then you can have the system periodically remind you to review the contract in the future. So you could say, I want to be reminded to start reviewing the contract on this date, but then I also want to be asked to review the contract every 6 months for 2 times, right? So now the system's going to ask you to review the contract, send you an email reminding you to review the contract on this date, and then 6 months from now, and then a year from this date, both of those times, the system will ask you to review the contract. So this is all optional functionality. You don't have to utilize it, but if you want to utilize it, it is available to you. And I'll just let you know that the system also will allow you to set up obligations, which we'll go over in just a little bit. So the obligations are similar to the review functionality. Excuse me, one second.
So
Sorry about that.
I was going to use that gap to fill in for you. So yeah, so the reviews are really nothing more than a tickler to say that this needs to be looked at for some reason, right? But it doesn't give you any specific action or specific reason for review. It's just simply stating that every year this should be looked at. What Chris will show you next with obligations allows you to take that, but call out for specific actions to be taken in the future.
Yep, absolutely. So what we can do is, if you want to, you can remove these, and now it's not going to be asking me to review the contract at all. So after that, we have renewals. So in the renewals, what you can do is set up the system to renew the contract after the end date, right? So if you've got a 5-year contract with 2 1-year optional renewals, what you can do is set up the contract to have a 5-year duration. And then what you would do is you'd say, okay, I've got 2 optional renewals and their term is 1 year each. So what this would do is essentially when the contract's about to expire, this would give me an action item to renew the contract right before it expires, which will allow me to kind of extend the contract end date based on that renewal term. So you can have that set up to where you manually need to trigger that action to happen, where you'd go into the actions and you would select that you want to renew the contract. Or you can say, yes, I want to auto renew. And what would happen there is the system would automatically create that draft renewal for you. You'd still have to submit it, complete all the rest of the information and submit it, but the system would kind of start the process for you. So a lot of clients like renewals. They don't necessarily want the system to automatically start the renewal for them, but they'll set up these renewal terms in the future just so that they know that they need to renew the contract if they want to, right? So a lot of times they're optional renewals and not automatic renewals, so they'll have the option to renew it as necessary. So those are some of the standard set of information that come with the system. Below that, we've got some custom fields that we've built out just for CSU. So the first one we have here is whether or not this is auxiliary, stateside, or both. So this is a radio button, and you'll just be asked to select the appropriate option here. Next, below that, we have multi-campus agreement. So here you're able to select whether this agreement is going to apply to a single campus, multiple campuses, or if it would be system-wide. So in this case, we'll go ahead and select single campus. If you were to choose multi-campus, you'll notice that you'll be able to select which campuses are involved in the contract, right? So if you're going in on a contract with multiple other campuses, maybe with Sacramento and with Fresno and with San Francisco, you can select all of the campuses that apply to this contract. and that would allow for searching purposes later. If somebody was looking for a contract, they would see, oh, okay, I see that, Sonoma originally authored this campus, but it's a multi-campus contract and we're involved. So we're able to maybe buy off of that one. Whereas if you select single campus, you'll notice that goes away. And you should only select system-wide if you are certain that you are going to, you got, kind of authorization to do so. But in this case, we'll go ahead and just select a single campus. Below that, we're going to select whether or not this is with a contract with an SB or a DVBE or a micro business. So if we choose no there, we don't have to select anything else. But if we say yes, then the system is going to ask us for the classification type, right? So each second party can have multiple classification types. So we could say, okay, this particular supplier is a DVBE and they're a small business. So you can choose the appropriate options that apply. Okay. We said that this was a $200,000 contract. So under total contract amount in words, you can type in the total contract amount in words. So you'll note that this is not a required field right now. The reason it's not required is we've built this out for a very specific purpose, and that is as we come up with contract main document templates, we can have those main document templates populate with the information that we provide in the system, right? So if I type in, $200,000 in words and save this, if we had built this contract off of one of our standard templates, that information can pre-populate into our standard template. So I'm not going to fill that out right now for this contract because I'm not using it for that purpose. But just know that we're trying to be forward thinking, and as we come up with the appropriate main document templates in the future, if we want to pre-populate that information, we'll be able to do that with custom fields like total contract amount in words, for example. Okay. Temporarily, we've got this purchase order number field here, so you can reference the purchase order number that applies to this particular contract. Just note that, again, this is an optional field, and later on, once we get into phase 3, this potentially could go away for future contracts. So we may not need this, as we'll essentially be able to tie the contract to the purchase orders that are generated in the system. And then below that, again, we've got another set of fields that may be going away in the future. We have this accounting information, which is all optional. You don't have to fill this out, and could be useful for tracking and searching purposes in the future. Again, once we get into phase 3, we will be able to designate a fund and department for invoicing purposes against the contract. But for right now, if you just want to track that information, you can track them in these fields. Just note that these are not validated in any way. They're just for kind of informational purposes only. All right. Questions or concerns before we continue on into the rest of the demonstration and training session? No? All right, great. So the alternate language section is really only going to apply when we have a main document template that we're using. So for now, you can skip past alternate language by clicking directly on the next menu item that you want to go to, or just by clicking next. Just note that once we get into the templates, we can have alternate language built into the templates, so that if you have maybe a medium risk clause and a high risk clause, we can include those clauses into the main document templates and allow your contract managers to select the appropriate clause, and that will update the main document appropriately. So more to come on alternate language in the future. So next we're going to go to attachments, and again, because I did not use a main document template. I don't have a main document in the system right now, so I'll need to upload it. So this is typically what you would do for a scenario where you're using second party paper, or if you're coming up with a contract main document template that was not previously saved in the system as a main document template. So I'm going to go ahead and upload a main document template. So to do that, you're going to click on this little arrow next to download main document. And then if we have a template built into the system, you can still use the template we have built into the system. Otherwise, you can go ahead and click upload main document. And from here, you can go ahead and select the main document from your computer, or if you have it in a shared drive somewhere, you can do that. So I'll go ahead and select the main document now. Okay. After you've selected your main document, you can designate whether it would print with the full contract. So for main document template, that's always going to be a yes. And then you can also specify whether you want it to show up on the supplier portal. So, if the supplier logged into the system and the contract was deemed visible in the right status, you could share this contract main document with the supplier in the portal if you wanted to by saying yes here. You can also designate whether or not this is going to show just to other admins and managers, or if you want it to show up in the contract summary settings as well. And then you're going to click Save Changes. Okay, so now I have successfully uploaded a main document for this contract. I can also upload other attachments as well, right? So to do that, I can click on Add Attachments, or click on the little down arrow and click Add Attachments, either way. So again, I would do this in a similar process to what I had done before, right? So I can just upload an attachment from my desktop, or from a file or a drive that I have available. If you have a particularly large file, one that's maybe over 50 megabytes, which is pretty rare unless you got some kind of extremely large document. If you have an extremely large document, you could host that on another website and then post the URL here. But most of the time, 99% of the time, you'll be able to upload that document here, and it shouldn't be a problem. And then just note that you can decide whether you want this to print with the full contract or not, yes or no. So if you say yes here, what that's going to do is that's going to include this document in the full PDF that will become the contract record later on in the process. So if this is a list of addendums or something like that, and you would want this to eventually become part of the contract record, you would say yes here, and then ultimately, that would roll up into the PDF and may even be sent out for as part of the document package that gets signed, right? But you could also say no here. So if this is just an internal memo, something that you would not want to go out for signature, and you would not want necessarily anybody to see in the full PDF printout of the contract record, that's when you would say no here, and then you can still save that as a document against this contract record as a whole, but it would not be included in that full PDF contract record. Does that make sense to everybody? Yep. So I'll go ahead and select a file and upload it here. And I'm going to say, no, it's not going to be included. All right, and now I have saved changes. So now I've got two documents related to my contract record. Now, if I wanted to, I can go ahead and start making modifications to this contract record. So to do that, what you can do, you can click Open Main Document here. You can click on this link. You can go to Actions and then click download. So there's lots of ways that you can download the document to start making changes to it. The nice thing about having in this left-hand menu is even if you're on another page, you can open the main document and start making changes to it even while you're on another page. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the main document. And I'm going to show you how you can make changes to the main document using the Jagger Word app and then also not using the Jagger Word app. So I'm going to show you both processes. So we'll go ahead and open up this main document. And of course, we're going to enable for editing. And then if I'm using the Jagger Word app, I'm going to open up the Jagger plugin, and then I'm going to go ahead and put in my password, sign in, and then I'm going to check out the document. Oh, sorry, I already did check out the document. I'm going to go ahead and start making the changes that I need in the document. So maybe I'm going to go ahead and just remove this and as a volunteer. Okay, so maybe that's the only change that I need to make. So once I've made all of my changes, you know, before I do that, let me just show you how you could add additional content, right? So one of the nice things about having the Jagger Word app is that you're going to have access to all of our pre-approved clauses. So if I click on this little approved clauses link here, I can search for the clause by the clause name, or I can just click search to find them all. And then I can decide to insert clauses into this document. So if I wanted to go to the end, maybe and insert a blank page, I could go ahead and insert this here. And now I have successfully inserted this writer, right? So I didn't have to go and find this and upload another document. Even if this was on a second party's paper, if I opened up this in the Jagger Word app, I can insert this pre-approved clause into the document right here. So that's one of the nice things about having the Jagger Word app is you're going to have access to these pre-approved clauses, and you'll be able to find those clauses and insert them where necessary. So that's a great thing. I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and remove this one though. And then after I remove it, I'm going to go ahead and check in my changes. There we go. And we'll check and see how the system can track our changes. So let's go ahead and check in. And I can tell the system what I did. Okay, and then you can decide if you want to check out the document, or if you want to check in the document permanently, or if you just want to check in your changes, but keep the document checked out to you. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to click OK. And now I have successfully checked in the changes, but the document and the record is still checked out to me. So if I'm using the Jagger Word app, I don't actually have to save this anywhere. I can just say, don't save changes. And if I refresh my page in attachments, you'll see that now we're on to version 2 of the document. So what I can do, if you click on Actions, and then you click on Version History, this will show you different versions of the contract document. And you can actually compare these different versions. So I'm going to select both versions, and then I'm going to click Compare. And what this will do for me is it'll highlight the differences in the contract documents. So it'll give me a side-by-side comparison. And like I said, it'll show me the changes. So here I see, okay, in this version 1, I had the verbiage and as a volunteer, but in version 2, we took out that information. So that's going to apply for all the different versions of the contract. You can go back from all the way from the very beginning and compare it to the very latest version of the document, and the system will highlight all of the changes that have occurred. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Any questions or concerns there before we continue on? So next, I'm going to go ahead and
Quick
close this out.
question.
Sure.
So back in the Jagger add-in, when you search up the approve clause,
Mhm.
does that tie with contract type?
It can. So when you create your clause, you can designate a contract type if you want to, and then that clause would only be available for that particular contract type, or you can leave it open and allow any contract type to use that clause.
Okay. Okay. Because
Yeah,
I
good
only saw
question.
2 clause when you search up, and I know what the purpose of this one, the contract type, it's goods. So maybe that's why there's only 2 clause show up.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yep, very good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So next, what I'd like to do is show you how you can download the document and upload a new version if you don't have access to the Word document. So to do that, what you can do is just open the main document, just like we did before. And again, you'll open it. And you'll enable editing. And this time, what you're going to do is you're not going to have the Jagger Word app, right? So we're saying we don't have that. And what you'll do is you'll go ahead and make your changes just like normal. And if you don't have the Jagger Word app, one, you won't have access to the clauses to insert where you need them to. And then two, what you'll have to do is you'll have to save this document on your desktop or somewhere you have access to. And then after you've saved it, what you would do is you go into Actions, and then you'd click on Upload a New Version, and then you'd select the file, and then upload the new version. So after I have selected the file, you can give comments. Save changes. And now we're on to version 3. So you can update it either with the Jagger Word app or you can update it without the Jagger Word app. It's just more feature rich if you have the Jagger Word app, and it can be a little bit easier because you don't have to worry about downloading and saving and then uploading. You can do it all in the Jagger Word app. But it does keep track of your version history. So if we click on version history, we can compare either the first one to the original, or sorry, the third version to the original, or the third version to the second version. And just like before, it's going to highlight the changes between the 2 versions of the document. So we can see here's the change that we made in this version of the document. So in version 2, we had this verbiage. In version 3, we got rid of it. All right. So now you can see how the contract administrator or contract manager can make changes to the contract record. Later, I'm going to show you how your reviewers can make changes as well. But first, I'm going to show you obligations. So as we had mentioned earlier, we have the very basic functionality that comes with the review, but there's also more advanced functionality that comes with what are called obligations. So the obligations are another way to remind you of different obligations or things that someone will be responsible for during the course of the contractual agreement. But the obligations functionality is more feature rich and comes with additional functionality that the review rounds just doesn't. So we'll start by clicking on Add Obligation. And if you have an obligations library, if we've built that out for you, you can select from a library, and that'll make creating the obligation a little bit easier. But I'm going to go ahead and add a brand new obligation from scratch by clicking Add New Obligation. And you're going to give the obligation a name. So maybe this obligation is around insurance requirements. So we'll say it's an insurance reminder. Okay, so maybe the description for this is a reminder to ask the second party for product liability insurance. And then you can designate a tag for it if we have tags. But you don't have to do the tags. You can determine whether or not somebody has to upload a document to mark this obligation as complete. So if it's an insurance document, you might say, well, in order for you to say that this obligation has been fulfilled, I need you to actually go in and upload a copy of their insurance, right? So they had to have actually provided you with that insurance certificate, and you need to go ahead and upload that certificate in order to say that this obligation has been fulfilled. So you can check that box to say to designate that. You can also set up a schedule for the obligations. So you can make it a one-time obligation where somebody only has to do this once, or you can make this a reoccurring obligation. So you can say, every 6 months or every year, I need you to fulfill this, make sure that this obligation has been fulfilled. So this can be used for multiple purposes, right? So this could be used for an insurance collection reminder. It could be used to remind somebody to pay the second party because they would have fulfilled part of a services contract within a given period of time. Could be a product release reminder. So it could be a reminder for you to send somebody a notice asking them to release X number of products from their warehouse. There's lots of different uses for this, but it gets down to essentially a way to remind you that something needs to be done during the course of this contract, right? So we can go ahead and set up a schedule and say, okay, once every 6 months on the first day, or you can say, the second Tuesday of the month, I'm going to send this, and I'm going to start sending this contract or this reminder after the contract start date, and I want it to end by the contract end date. So you can do that, or you can say, well, I want it to start on a custom date. Let's just say on December 22nd, and I want it to end on the contract end date. So you can set this up however you want. But once you set up the schedule, you're going to click next. And once you click next, you're going to decide, okay, I know I want to send this obligation reminder out. Who do I want to send this to? So you'll click add new, and here you can designate who you're actually going to send this notification out to. So you might say, okay, I want to send it to the contract manager, the person who set up this contract, and I want to remind them to right? Maybe that's my reminder. And you can decide which notifications you want to send them. Do I want to send them an advance notice before it's due? Do I want to send them a due date notice? Do I want to send them past due notices? Probably not going to want to send this person a completed notice because they're going to be the one going into the system and marking this as complete. So then I could click save, or I could click save and add another, and I can remind somebody else. So maybe I can go in and select the second party, and I would select them, and I would say, okay, second party, I'm going to send you a notification about this, and your notification is going to be right. And these task notes will actually go in the email notification that they receive. So you'll be able to remind them of these. I'm going to go ahead and not send this just because their email address might be in the system. And then you can designate, if you're sending out advance notices, you can designate how far in advance you want to send these notices. So you can say, okay, 60 days in advance of this being due, I want to send a notice, and then maybe 30 days in advance. So you can choose to utilize these. So you can just use one of them or use 2 or 3. If you leave them blank, they're not going to send out. So once I'm done setting this all up, I'm going to click Save Changes. And you'll notice that the system is going to build out a schedule for me as to when these obligation notifications are going to go out. So you can see that this obligation notification is going to start going out on this date, and then the next one's going to come out on December of 2021, and so on. So after the contract has been submitted and executed, and when this date is about to occur, what'll happen is you can be reminded about this obligation. You'd go into the system under actions, and then you'd mark it complete. And then if you needed to, you would upload a document to justify why you've marked this obligation as complete if you set the obligation up to do that. So does that make sense to everybody how you would utilize the obligations in the system?
One other note on those, so Chris walked through actually creating a new obligation. There's also the capability to have libraries of obligations predefined. So that's another area we'll be building out over time. So as we see, as people create new obligations or identify obligations that are used somewhat standard, we can add those to a library. So there may be an obligation library related to construction or IT or other things. So again, that's areas they'll build out over time. So you won't have to go through all those steps. You'll merely just go to the library and pull in that. But like, to be insurance obligation, you pull that right in.
Yep, very good. All right, next let's move on to the review rounds. So the review rounds are where you can send out this contract document to either other people in your organization, which would be this create manual internal review round, or you can send the contract out to external parties. So maybe the supplier or a third party legal or anyone else you need to review the contract, right? So to create a brand new internal review round, what you're going to do is click create a manual internal round. And then you're going to click add reviewer. And then you're going to search for the person that you want to review the contract. I'm going to search and I'm going to find this person. I'm going to select them and click save changes. So you can have one person in your internal review round, or you could have 3 or 5 or 6 before you begin the round. You can also have multiple internal review rounds. So you might have, one internal review round with risk, and then after risk gets done reviewing the contract, then you could send it out to legal in an internal review round. And then after legal gets done, you could send it to, the second party, right? Or in a different order. So you can have as many people in an individual round as you want, and then you can have as many rounds as you need. But in this case, I'm just going to have one round and just one person in the round. And I'm going to go ahead and begin round. And then I can give them a message. And then when I'm ready, I'm going to go ahead and begin internal review. All right, so now you see that the system has successfully sent this out for internal review. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to log in as that second internal reviewer. And we'll take a look at how they can access the contract record and how they can work with it. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. All right, so now I'm in the system as the, there we go, as the reviewer. So your reviewer can sign up for email notifications, letting them know that they need to do an internal review. They can also sign up for in-app notifications as well. So let me show you an example of the email notification. So this is an example of the email notification. It says dear and then their name, gives them the contract number, is now ready for your review, and they can click on a link to view the contract and start updating the contract, and even gives them the message that the original contract manager put in the system. But I'm already in the system, so the contractor reviewer can also sign up for what is called in-app notifications. So these in-app notifications are nice because if you sign up for just in-app notifications, you don't have to get the email and clog up your inbox. And you'll get a little number icon next to this bell letting you know you have in-app notifications to review. So after I click on that, I can see, oh, okay, I need to review this furnishing products purchase contract. So I can click on this, and here it is. Okay, here's the contract that I need to look at. So I can go to action items here, and I can go ahead and check out this document. And after I check it out, I can open the main document. And if your internal reviewer has the Jagger Word app, they're able to utilize the Jagger Word app and make this a very efficient process for them as well. So they can show the Jagger Word app, and as you can see, it's already checked out to them. They can go in and find the clause that they need to look over, and maybe they can remove certain things that don't necessarily need to be there, right? So I'm going to say, okay, I can get rid of that one. And just like you, they can go into the clauses and they could insert clauses if they needed to do that. And then once they're done making all of their changes, they can click check in, and they can say, they can tell you what they've done. Okay, click OK. And then they additionally get the option to say that they're done with their review as well. So now I've checked in my changes, and I can say, you know what, I'm done with my review. That's all I needed to do. All done. Okay. And now they're done. So they can just go ahead and close Word, and they can go back to the home page or close this out. They're done with their process, right? So now if I go back in as the contract manager and go to my internal review round, we'll see that the internal reviewer is now marked as done. And if we go into the attachments, we'll see that we're on to version 4 of the main document. I can go in, take a look at the version history, and I can compare and see the changes that this internal reviewer has made. You'll notice that the document is now checked back into the system and it's not checked out to my contract manager. So I can't go in and make any changes while it's checked out. If I want to check it back into myself or check it back out to myself, I can go in and make changes. So that's an important part of functionality that comes with the tool. You can check in and check out contract records. Once you have it checked out, you can go ahead and make changes. If you have it checked in, that's going to allow somebody else who may be working with you on the contract to also go in and make changes. So when you have it checked out, just note that you're locking everybody else out. And you'll need to check it in to let everybody else start making changes to the record. So we've done our internal review. I'm going to do one more internal review, and this time I'm going to show you what it looks like if the internal reviewer does not have the Jagger Word app. So I'm going to quickly go through this and create a manual internal review round, add the reviewer. I'm going to add the same person in the second round and select them and save changes and begin the round. Okay, now I sent it out to them for review, and now I'm back in as the reviewer this time, but this time I'm going to pretend that I don't have the Jagger Word app. So again, I can go to my bell icon, and now I see, okay, I need to review this again. This time I'm going to go ahead and check out the document, and I'll go ahead and open it up. And this time, like I said, I don't have the Jagger, I'm pretending I don't have the Jagger Word app. So I'll go ahead and just make a change. Okay, but this time I have to save it somewhere, right? Because I don't have the Jagger Word app. So I'll go ahead and save it. I'll close this. And now that I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and upload a new version of the attachment. So I'll go to attachments, and I will upload a new version. And I'll go ahead and select that. So now I've selected it. Save changes. So now we're on to version 5, and I'll go back into my review round, and now I can go ahead and say, I'm done with my review. And done with my review. So there's still a way for your internal reviewers to check in updates to the contract record without the Jagger Word app. It's just not quite as convenient, right? And they won't have access to those pre-approved clauses to put into the system. Okay. So if we refresh here, we see that now we've got 2 internal review rounds done, and this reviewer was able to upload the documents both with and without the Jagger Word app. Okay, so now let's do an external review round. Maybe we need our second party to review the contract document. So we'll go ahead and click Start External Review Round, and we'll add a reviewer. And this time we're going to need to put in their name and email address. And you don't have to put title or phone number. You can go ahead and click Save Changes. All right, so again, just like the internal review rounds, you can have multiple external reviewers, you can have multiple rounds, but in this case, I'm just gonna have one reviewer and I'm gonna begin the round. And you can decide which documents you wanna send out to this external reviewer. And then you can also customize the message that goes out to the external reviewer, and you can adjust the from name, from email, the subject of the message. But I'm gonna go ahead and just click Send Mail. And now I have successfully sent out a message to my external reviewer. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in to take a look at the communication center and show you what that looks like. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and click on Communication Center. And if we click on external, you'll see that the system keeps track of all of the external communications that you send out of the system in this communication center, also internal communications as well. So from here, you could start a new external communication if you wanted to. That's pretty easy to do. If you just want to communicate with the second party and keep that communication logged in the system. Or you can click on this little link here, and this is going to show you the external review round that I just queued up. And it's going to show you the email message that was sent out in the communication center. So I can see exactly, the communication message that was sent out to the second party. So any questions or concerns about what they've seen so far?
I have a question about reviewer. Were they able to do the comparison of the different versions of the document?
Yeah, great question. Absolutely. So your reviewers can actually go in to the action items and go to version history, and they will have the opportunity to review and compare the different versions of the document. Good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I tell you what, while we wait for the communication to be sent out to the second party and for that second party to successfully respond, let's do this real quick. Let's go ahead and set up our electronic signatures, and we'll get back to this in just a moment. All right, so we'll click on e-signature. And you're only going to see this left-hand menu for e-signature if on the header you said, yes, I do want to use electronic signature. Oh, and I need to check this back out to myself so I can go in and make changes here. So if you did say yes on the header page to say you want to use electronic signature, you'll see this menu item, and here you'll be able to edit this and make some decisions here. So first and foremost, do you want the signers to sign sequentially, or you want them to sign in parallel? So if you say I want them to sign parallel, that would allow them to sign in any order they want to, right? So Or if you say, I want them to sign sequentially, you're going to set up the order and say, okay, this person has to sign first, and then this person signs second, and then this person signs third. So you can designate that order. Under that, you're going to see a placement of signature blocks fields. So right after we go live, you're essentially always going to use the option manual placement by contract manager, because we're not going to have a bunch of templates built out for you day one. We will be setting up those templates as we continue in the process, but just know that day one we're not going to have all those set up and ready to go. And then as we get more of those contract templates built into the system, you'll be able to use this automatic placement by e-signature application more and more, because we'll have essentially pre-built the signature placement into the template for you as we build out those templates. So just note that for now, you're always going to be using this manual placement. As we get those templates built out for you, and if we've got the perfect number of signers for the template, we'll be able to use automatic placement in the future. Okay, but we'll go ahead and add our signers. So we'll designate who's going to be signing the contract record. So we'll click Add Signer, and we can select the contract party. So maybe I'm going to say, okay, the second party is going to sign first. And if they have contacts listed in here, you can go ahead and select the contacts. But I'm actually going to just manually enter a signer because I need to put in my own name here. Okay, and my email address and my title. Save changes. And now I'm going to put in my other signer. So this signer is going to be at Cal State. Yep. All right. And before I submit this for approval, I noticed that I actually got the notification as the second party. So let me show you what that notification looks like. So here's the notification that was sent to the second party. And what your second party typically will do is they'll download the attachment. And of course, they're not going to have the Jagger Word app at all. So they're going to have to manually adjust the document. So maybe your second party went in here and maybe they just took out this entire thing, right? And they would have just gone ahead and saved that to their desktop like normal, or wherever they save their contract records. Okay, and they'll respond back to you and say, please see the attached signed contract maybe, and they'll go ahead and upload a copy of that. And they'll send it to you. All right, so now they have successfully sent you that document.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
When the outside party sends you back, say, changes to this, does it coming back to you through an email attachment because they don't have access to Jagger?
Yeah, they're not going to have access to Jagger. So you're going to get an email, and you'll also be able to go into this communication center in the contract record, and you'll see the communication load into this communication center. So you'll get a message letting you know that, oh, okay, they've gone into the system and responded, and you'll be able to go in here and review their message. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. All right, so here's the message, by the way. So here's the message I got. So you get the same, you get this message as the contract manager, you know, that the second party sent to you. Please see the attached signed contract. But also, if I go into the system and I go to Communication Center, and then I go to External, and then I go to the message, it's also captured in the system as well. So 2 years from now, 5 years from now, when your messages have been purged from the email server, this is still going to live here. So you'll always be able to go back and reference this. Make sense? Yep. So now what I can do is I can go to Actions and I can compare the version of the attachment that the second party provided with my main document. I'm going to compare with, I'm going to say their version with my main document, and I'm going to compare it. And if we scroll down, we'll see the changes that the second party made. So, okay, they removed part of our warranty language. Okay, so I could choose to not accept it, right? So I could just go ahead and end their review round and not accept their changes, or I can go to Actions and I can add or update the main document. So I can replace my version of the main document with the second party's version. And save. And now I've got a brand new version of the main document, and it is now on version 6. And again, I can compare that version with any of the previous versions. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and say that we are done with their review. And now it's back in the draft status. And I'm going to go ahead and submit this one for approval. Actually, before I do that, you'll want to go down to users and contacts. Here you're able to specify any other users who should have access to your contract. So if you want to add another campus to help you work on the contract, you can do that by adding them as contract managers. You can add anyone else as a stakeholder to be able to view the contract. Just FYI, users automatically have access to your contract through the work group structure. So essentially, anybody will be able to see your contracts. If you need to make them confidential, you can click this button to make the contracts confidential, and then only people who are added here as contract managers or stakeholders or people with very special permissions would be able to see your contract. So if you need to make a contract confidential, you can do that, and that would exclude a lot of people from who would normally have access to your contract just from the work group structure. Okay. I can also go into notifications, and here you'll want to set up which notifications are going to go out of the system. So you can say, okay, I want to send advance notices for when the end date are going to occur to my contract managers. And maybe not the ones that came over from the work group, but maybe just the ones that I've added, right? Or I want to add, I want to send them a notification whenever the end date passes, or I want to send out review dates and renewal dates, but just to these people and not to the stakeholders or the contract managers that came over from the work groups. Okay, so you choose which kind of notifications you want to send out of the system. And if you're sending out these advance notices, you can decide how far in advance you want the notices to be sent out. So I can say, 60 days and 30 days before the end date, I want to send an advance notice just to the contract managers who are listed on this contract, not the ones that came over from the work group. And you can save those changes. You can also go to the contract family, and here you can list out child contracts for this as well. But let's go ahead and submit this one for approval. Okay, and we'll view the contract. If I need to do ad hoc approvals, what I can do is wait for this to compile. It's going to take just a moment here. And essentially, we've built in this ad hoc approval step for you to add ad hoc approvals when necessary. So if you don't need any ad hoc approvals, what you can do is just click approve, and that'll process it through in the system. If you need to add ad hoc approvals, you need somebody to officially kind of approve this contract when the language is fixed, you can click on add ad hoc step, and then you can select who you want to include and give them a comment and decide where in the process you'd want them to approve it and save changes. So that would essentially add this person as an approver in the workflow. But you don't have to do that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just approve this because I don't need any ad hoc approvals. And what the system's going to do now is it's going to send the contract out to the electronic signature provider. For many of you, that's going to be Adobe Sign. Once it's complete, then it's going to wait in this e-signature setup step. So this setup step is only required if you are manually placing the signature block. So if we've got the template all set up for you and you selected automatic placement of the signature blocks, you'll be able to, it'll skip this step and go right out to the signers and have them sign it. If we're using second party or we don't have the template set up for you, you're going to have to launch the e-signature application. And you'll need to go ahead and put in signature blocks. So you'd scroll down and find where you wanted to sign the documents. Okay, so maybe it's at the end here. So we can go ahead and put in a signature block. And we can put in like a name and a title if we wanted to. And we can even put a date in here. And then we can switch over from one person and select the other person and say, okay, this is where their signature is going to go. And this is where their name is going to go. Many of you have done this before, so this is old hat to you, but we'll go ahead and show it anyways. Maybe there's the title. And there's the date. All right, so now we're ready. We'll go ahead and click send. And we have successfully sent it out to the signers so they can go into the system and start signing the contract. So let's go ahead and take a look at that real quick. And here we see the contract signature request from Adobe Sign, so I can review and sign the contract. And I can go ahead and start. And here's where I need to sign, so I'll select that, apply it, enter my job title. And it's automatically put the date in for me. I can click to sign. And this signer has completed their signature. So let's go ahead and move on to the next signer. So it should trigger them to sign the document in just a moment here. There it is. So here's the second signer's request. So they're going to click to sign as well. And I may need to just log out real quick because I'm logged in. Try that again. That's better. So now they can go ahead and sign their side. And they can sign. So now we've got signatures from both parties. It's going to take the system just a minute here. While it's getting the signatures, if you click on this e-signature page, it's going to keep track of the status of each of the signers. So it'll say when it's sent out to them, and whether they've completed their signature or not. So if you need to kind of follow up with your signers, you can go to this e-signature page and it'll show you where they're at in the process. And whenever the signatures are complete, it's going to send you an email letting you know that the signatures are complete. And essentially, once the signatures have all been collected, what it's going to do is it's going to approve update the approval workflow, and it's going to show that the contract is fully approved, and then it'll show executed, and it'll show either executed in future or executed in effect based on the dates that you've put into the system. So it's going to take just a moment, but that's essentially what will happen. Does that make sense to everybody? Questions or concerns about how that works? There it is. So now we've got the system automatically updating to executed in future. And if we view the contract that gets pulled into the contract record, it's this PDF document. And if we scroll down, we can see the signatures. And of course, the signature tracking as well, the final audit report. All right, so let's take a look at how you can get the contract manually signed. I'm going to try to do this relatively quickly. So I'm just going to copy this one just so I can show you as quickly as I can. Okay, so this time I'm going to say, no, I don't want to use electronic signature. So you'll notice that goes away. And when I submit it for approval, and I go back to the approvals, it's not going to have the electronic signature steps. What it's going to do is essentially just compile into a PDF. It's going to ask me if I want ad hoc approvals. Again, I can just add those ad hoc approvals as necessary or just approve it through. And then it's going to wait in this step for me to upload a signed copy of the document. So if I got the document signed outside of the system, this is where I can go to contract actions, upload a fully executed contract, and then I would either select the file from my desktop or something, or if the document I had previously loaded in the system was already signed, I could just click use use full contract PDF. I could select the appropriate execution date. So I could say it was actually signed back on the 25th, save changes, and now I've got an executed contract. Does that make sense to everybody?
Sounds like it does.
All right, so that essentially concludes how to create a contract in the system. We talked about, create the different custom fields, how we can redline the contract, how we can get it electronically signed through the system, or upload a signed contract that was signed outside the system. So Kurt, I'll pass it back to you.
Hey, Chris. Yeah, so thanks for the, like put in the chat, we do have a couple, have a couple more slides to run through and we get into some questions. Also, as I put in the chat, we do have quick reference guides for everything you saw today that we'll be sending out. The other thing, once we go, actually a couple things. If anyone else, if you don't have access to the to contracts and tasks, like I said, just shoot a note to Claire Smith and with your campus, and after you've logged in once, then we'll get you set up so you can play around the system the rest of the week. We do have other training sessions this week, so if you do want to sit in again for another repetition, that is fine as well. You can just reach out to Claire or David for those invites. the other key point is once we go live, we're actually going to be continuing what we've been calling office hours. So the approach is to, provide some initial training, but then rather than getting everything set up and done and walking away, what we're decided to do is, for the next couple of months, we'll be providing office hours for folks to call in. We'll be a couple different resources that'll be on in rotation. And really the goal of that would be to help walk you guys through initial contracts. Again, because I know sometimes when you take the training, if you don't use it right away, it's easy to forget. So it's under that premise that we'll be offering that. Just show my screen here quick. Let's see. Yeah, thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
And again, we'll send you this deck afterwards, but just a couple of things we want to highlight. Again, global contracts are typically set up by the CO. But we do have the ability, if you're creating a contract within your local work group or campus, that can also be designated as system-wide. One thing to consider is when you're starting into, this will be more a point for later on, is as we build more contracts in the system, make sure you're searching for contracts for those suppliers before you start using them. Again, we'll be able to get more maximum benefit out of the system. And their key point we saw is that really the contract type that you pick early in the selection when you're creating a context, that's going to drive the custom fields that are available to basically drive the metadata that's collected for that contract. The other, again, as Chris explained briefly, the reminders, right? So think about which reminders you want to use for contracts, for either just for the obligation reviews, etc. Cutover tasks. So transitioning from Cal Resource. So the key dates are Friday will be live. All contracts after that should be entered in CSUBUY. And again, we will be calendaring office hours to support that activity starting next week. Cal Resource does go away end of the year. So December 31st is the last day for that, which leads into the next point, contract conversion. We're not moving everything automatically into CSUBUY. There's a number of reasons for that. One from cost with CU or UC and the vendor. The other thing is we want to prioritize what gets moved over. So we'll have additional follow-up instructions for basically what Chris just ran through is the process to load historical contracts. So we'll also be providing assistance with that effort. But effectively, you'll need to go. We'll need the high-level steps. We going into the old system, downloading your contract, and then creating it as a new contract in CSUBUY. Any contracts created in Cal Resource before 12/31 will need to be re-entered in CSUBUY as well. So in the event if there's some reason that you do have to enter a new one in Cal Resource after next week, they'll have to be in both systems. And again, we'll have further discussions with the CPRs from each campus, but we'll be working with each campus on a plan to bring over old contracts. Suppliers. We brought over a body of suppliers, roughly 300 or so. So any suppliers that were on existing system-wide contracts, those suppliers were added, as well as the top 200 or so suppliers from the last year, to try to get us a good base of suppliers in the system. So when you go to create that contract and you search for the contract parties, they'll be there. You will likely have to add a contact and an address, even though those are optional. We did not load, just based on due to the data we had, we just loaded the contract parties. We did not load related contacts yet. So those can be added as we go through the system. If the supplier's not there, there is a form within Jagger itself So we should, I believe Chris walked us through that, but again, it's on the, it'll be on your dashboard page. It's the CSU supplier request form. Very simple form. There's two things you can do. You can either attach a spreadsheet with multiple suppliers if there's many, or if it's a single supplier, you can just fill in the fields. Those will route to David Gee's team. They're trying to get those turned around within 24 hours, I believe, is what their target, their SLA. And again, the reason for that, centralizing that process, is it's actually more to do with keeping the system clean prior to a phase 3 when we're doing a full supplier cleanup. So again, if the supplier's not there, now this does not take the place of the supplier request for financial purposes or getting payments in other systems. So this is just strictly to get the suppliers in Jagger to either create contracts with or later trade sourcing events. Search basics. This is one to call out. Chris showed us this when he did the first search, but this is one that it's just by the nature of the defaults of the Jagger application. When you go in and you'll create a first contract and you go back to find that contract, you'll find that your search returns nothing. And simply just due to the way the basic defaults out of the box come. So the first thing, this will be an important thing to note. First time you guys get into the system production, you're going to want to take these steps. There's a couple key points. One is the active for shopping flag, and then the start end date. So what happens is when we get into e-procurement, the suppliers are designated, these are active or shopping or not. So you could be a supplier in the system, but maybe you don't want to be, you're just being used for sourcing. So we don't want you to be shopping with them yet. So that's where that designation comes from. Out of the box, Jagger has that checked to on in the search. It is a sticky parameter. So once you change it once, it'll remain changed. So it's a switch you have to make to your search criteria one time, and it'll remain. But that'll show you all your contracts. You can also search by system-wide by the custom field or the work group. Work group again being the same as as campus. And then again, just a note about the contract numbering. And those contract numbering will have the automatic prefixes that'll denote the campus as well. So again, we're trying to make the search experience the best that we can. Tips and tricks. I'll use the manual placement on the vendor created templates. Again, that is just, and again, that's similar to what you do today in either Adobe Sign or DocuSign to make sure you can just for the proper placement of those signatures on the physical page. Approval workflows. You can use the, again, we can use the ad hoc approver in any way you need. So some of the scenarios you may, if you have a contract that you want IT to review or something, again, we can just use that ad hoc approver step and drive it to the right person. And again, we did that because of the complexity of creating hard and fast rules for routing on that. So there you go. And draft contracts. This is just sort of a lesson learned. If you create a contract and you don't need it and it's a couple minutes in, you can go ahead and delete. One thing we generally say though, if you spent a good amount of time working on a contract, but let's say it doesn't get signed or it's no longer relevant, but you put potentially months of effort into various documents and attachments and things, it's good to leave those out there rather than deleting that draft so you have that history. Tools and support. Again, we will send, again, you'll have this out. So how we're going to be supported when we go live. One, like I said, is our office hours. So those invites will be coming out and there'll be office hours on the books for next week. Either Chris or Craig at Doherty, who's also on the line, will be, and myself will be on the line to support, again, getting the new contracts going. Again, we understand one session of training doesn't get you everywhere you need. So we'll be there to, hold your hand as you go through. Training materials. we're working on a revamped portal for CSUBUY internally. That's in process, and we're posting some recordings, things out there now. So that's in process. We'll house everything. But right now, until then, we'll be hosting documents on the current page. So what do we have there? We've got quick reference guides. So again, those are step-by-step instructions for really each of the steps we saw today. Frequently asked questions. So our change management folks are omnipresent on calls and training and sessions, and pick up on questions that are asked and tips and tricks. So that's their consolidating those often in these FAQ documents. So those are available, as well as short video clips for both internal and external users on how to do things. The other is talk your CPR. So the CPRs for your campus did participate in UAT and have had many run-throughs through the system, so they can be one of your first line contacts for questions. And then beyond that, you can ask for help. So you also can use the, I believe there's a ServiceNow routing as well that be able to use to get answers from support from within CSU. Where to ask for help? Here's the screenshot from ServiceNow. And again, you route to the report a CSU by issue, and that'll be routed to Lee, David, and Claire's team for response. Questions and next steps. So go live is Monday. Look for the office hours invites. And also we'll be sending out after the train today, both a link to the, we'll post this actual recording out to the website. So you'll have access. You can go back and review through this, as well as other recordings of trainings and walkthroughs, as well, and the job aids and quick reference docs. We do have, we're hoping to get into more a real life example, but we went a little longer than we thought. We do have 10, 15 minutes left. We can open up for any questions. We can do some, again, if we want to drill back into the application or any other question you may have. The time is yours to ask.
Lori from Maritime asked a question in the chat. It says, is the last method where we will add our current contracts? So this was when Chris was uploading completed signature docs.
Yep,
yes.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah, so you basically go through, it's the same process, create a new one, but you'll be creating with an effective date, already in the past, and then you'll basically load that existing signed document as the final version.
And then Phyllis has asked, when will the quick reference guides be available?
They're available immediately after this call. We did make full disclosure. We did, Chris, myself, and David made a quick change last night that I've just surprised my change folks with today. But we will, so that's getting updated as we speak. So they'll be out today. So by the end of the day, you'll have all the QRFs.
Hi, this is Lori from Cal Maritime. Is it just the contracts that fall under CSUBUY, or will we be putting up like public works service agreements?
Everything is the plan ultimately. We do have a working group that's been finalizing all the requirements for public works and construction contracts. That is very close, and that'll be rolled out here probably before go live. And just a little more color commentary on that. So again, the biggest difference between the different types is the additional metadata that we collect for them. So we have a couple different working groups looking at things like leases, construction, student agreements, to make sure that we have, beyond the basic information, we have any additional parameters those are needed. So that's my long version. But again, ultimately, everything should be routed through here. Now that said, as you get in there, if there is any additional documentation or metadata you'd want to capture or something, let us know, and we'll continue to improve those over time. How will contracts be stored? It's a fair question. Effectively forever. There's no automated purge or anything of documents. So really it'll be more of a question for, it'll fall under any standard data retention policies that the university system would have. Yep, the QRF Word app, we have that, and that's a good one, so that'll come out today as well. And like Stephanie's putting in the chat, we will we'll send out all the QRFs today, but with the caveat that we do training sessions the remaining of the week, so we may improve or update based on additional feedback. So the final. Well, not that everything's a work in progress over time, but we'll have final job aids out there on Monday morning. What else you got? Joy, you got to have something.
I have a
Oh, yeah,
question.
thanks.
This is Jessica. Can I ask a question about the external review round?
Absolutely.
Sure.
So it sounds, on the external review round, we sent it out, and in the walkthrough that we just did, the external party like struck a line or deleted a line. And we said you can either in the review round to reject it, or if we're agreeing with it, we can add or update the main or the document, right? Not necessarily the main document, whatever document they're reviewing. And so my question is, like, let's say they ask for, they want to strike some of our terms and we can't agree to that. So in the review round to reject it, then would I then go to the communication center and send a communication to them that says, you know, hi, we can't strike, you know, number 14 for this reason. You know, what was your reason for wanting to strike it? Is that kind of where we do where it's suggested that we do our back and forth so that we can have, what's the word I want? Like
Long-term retention.
Our trail, right? Or I call it an audit trail or communication trail.
Exactly. Yes. So keeping all the communication in the tool means it's going to be there for the long haul, right? It's not going to get purged with, you know, with your Outlook general Outlook purge. So we would recommend that you try to keep all their communications in the tool itself. That way you have one solid repository for every communication that went in and out about that particular contract.
Okay, and then you can correct me if I'm wrong. If we do some back and forth, we decide on some language, I change some language, I can then send it for a second external review round and say, hey, are you agreeable to this? And then they will respond back and say yes. And then I would add or update the main doc to essentially bring in those approved changes.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
I think, Joy, you had a question?
No, it's just Kurt wanted me to say something. So I was wondering, I don't know if Kurt or Chris, can you guys provide an update in regards to some campus? Sonoma is one of them. Our Jagger Word add-in is not working, and I know there was an email sent out to collect all the situation from each campus about what campus can install, what cannot, what will be the next step.
Yeah, so we are still working on that. Dwight's helping spearhead that from the CSU side. I don't have any updates as of this morning,
Okay.
other than to say we are following up with each of the IT groups on the different campuses to see how we can get that enabled.
Okay. Thank you.
And it's Jessica. I have another question.
You bet.
This might be getting too deep for some people, so I apologize.
No
we were looking in the obligations, and there was an option for a first party stakeholder versus a second party stakeholder. And do those people have to be in the system or have, to be in the system? Because let's say we want to notify, I want to notify somebody in my risk management department because they're the ones who contacted the vendor to go get insurance requirements. Is there a free-form option?
Result, you feel that one?
Yeah, so unfortunately not. They do have to be in the system. Now, they just have to have an account in the system. They don't actually have to have a specific role. So what you can do is just give them the URL to create an account in the system, and they'll click on the link, create the account, and then you can select them right after they click on the link.
Okay.
So the audience that kind of the audience we're looking at is anyone who's using marketplace in production today would already be in there. Anyone who's been involved, anyone's going to be doing the training or deployments for contract and source would be in there. So that would be the body of contacts to be worried about there, folks that haven't been involved in either. But again, like Chris, it's just a matter of in the first time and they're available.
Okay, perfect. And is there any like definitions in the QRGs? I don't recall seeing any, but what a first party versus a second party stakeholder is?
We'll add that to the FAQs, but effectively the first party is always going to be CSU or a CSU person, and the second party typically will be a supplier.
Okay.
Getting beyond that, as we enable the auxiliaries and things, we may have situations where auxiliaries are actually second parties, or they could be first parties, but that's
okay. And on parent contracts, I have a lot of me and my questions. I'll just keep asking them. Somebody probably has the same question I do.
Everyone does.
Parent contracts, would that be a good use if we're amending a contract? So we can reference a parent contract?
Yeah, good question. So the way that you'll do that is you'll actually amend the contract in the system itself. So that's an option to amend, and the system will automatically keep track of that parent-child relationship. So you wouldn't create a brand new contract when you were doing an amendment. What you would do is you'd search for that executed in effect contract, and then you take the action to make an amendment.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a nice thing. You don't have to sort of trick it into being a parent-child or related. It's got a firm structure for that. What else you got? You got more on your list?
Yes. The show on supplier portal, like what are the uses for that?
Yeah, so this is just helpful if you want to provide your suppliers a listing of the contracts that you have authored together. So they're not having to like bug you if they lost their copy of the contract or something like that. So yeah.
And so does only that supplier have access to only the contracts between us?
Oh, of
and
course,
nothing
yeah.
else?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, no, they don't have access to anyone else's contracts. They only have access to their own. And they only have access to the contracts that you mark as I want to share this contract. And even to go a step further, you can designate which documents you want to share as well. So get a lot of control over what they can see, can't see.
And in the short term, so the full supplier portal gets rolled out for phase 3. So in the short term, a good number of our suppliers won't even have a portal. They won't activate their portal account, as it were, to our Jagger system. Those we use for sourcing will, so these will be available for them.
So once a contract is fully executed, is there a way to, in the future, say, show on supplier portal?
Yep. Yeah. So you could amend it, or if you have the authority, you can check it out for internal edits and do that. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Page 2. I heard the page change.
I'm like, why is my microphone so sensitive to that? The last thing is when Chris went into his contracts dashboard, there was that CSU supplier request form as an option underneath the like the quick links on the right hand side.
Yep.
And I don't have that option on my side. In my testing, is that something that would be only a production?
So what you might have to do depends on your role.
Okay.
Do you have an option for view another dashboard?
Let me go back there.
The short answer is it'll be there in production on Monday.
Okay.
Yeah.
And no, I don't have that above that. Mine just starts with contract summary.
Okay. Yeah, we'll take a look and okay, so you don't have a little option here. Yeah, I'll take a look at your account and see if maybe you're missing a role or something.
Okay.
But yeah, good call out. What else? Any other questions at the buzzer? All right. Well, appreciate everyone's time and attention. Like I said, we will have documents coming out today for y'all, as well as, again, I don't know if I'm supposed to open up, but I will. The additional training sessions this week. If you do want to, if you want to run through another episode of the Chris Jones Show, let us know and we'll get you the invites.
Thank you, everybody.
That's it. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.